generative AI has made a strong impact on the world, and there's no doubt about it. We always thought it would be taking over the mundane tasks like data, numbers, but never could we have imagined that it will be coming for photography. And it's already such a powerful tool. It allows you to expand images and make horizontal photos finally hit Instagram's dimensions, or allows you to even fill in or remove objects that previously would have taken sometimes hours to do so, now in just a few seconds. And overall, generative AI has the potential to breathe new life to your photos. While this seems amazing, a question that I have and something that I'm personally worried about is, when does this stop? When do we draw the line? AI is already able to generate realistic looking LinkedIn photos from just a few sample reference images. And so the thing I want to discuss today and start a conversation with you guys watching is, what does generative AI mean for photography? Is this the end of photography as we know it? Maybe. Let's dive into it. For me, the biggest thing that generative AI brings to the table on photography and digital art is that it makes everything far more accessible. Technically, given enough time, resources, experience, and effort, a lot of the things that Photoshop's generative fill could be accomplished using pre-AI methods. Not everyone would be able to do it, but there are Photoshop wizards who would always find a way to make it work. However, now with this new technology, all these things become super accessible to anyone with just an imagination. And so, in a sense, Photoshop's generative AI fill has really leveled the playing field. These edits can be done with anyone at a lower barrier to entry. And so perhaps at the final image level, nothing much has changed. It's just that it has become far easier to achieve what only few could do just last year. AI has suddenly made these feats of image manipulation super accessible to anyone with just an imagination. If you can think of it, then AI will deliver. Well, most of the time. It's still not perfect yet. What's most exciting for me is that with the introduction of generative AI and making these things super accessible to anyone, is that although the barrier to entry has been lowered, the skill ceiling has shot up infinitely. These Photoshop wizards that I was just talking about, they will continue to find even more innovative and even more creative ways to utilize this new technology, taking the industry and taking creativity to a whole new level. But this is kind of where my excitement ends and leads more into questions of worry and some concerns. Firstly, it goes back to the age-old question of, what is photography? Where do we draw the line between something that is considered photography and something that is completely just digital art? And does it even matter? We're at a point where generative AI is so powerful that even experts can't tell. Recently, it was revealed that a photo submitted for a prestigious photography award was actually entirely generative AI. This Gen AI photo was actually submitted by a very well-known photographer to try to prove a point. And the point he was trying to make is that generative AI is far more powerful than we think it is, and is far more capable of replacing and mimicking photography. Because if a panel of industry experts and the other people that were involved in picking the final selection of this award couldn't even tell that this image was generated using AI, then what chance does the average consumer have? And so the quick and obvious solution seems to be, we just need to disclose when you're using generative AI. But then when do we draw the line? Even before AI, people were editing their photos. From just manipulating color, then manipulating light, changing how bright some areas of the image are, all the way to completely altering the image for the purposes of art. Before AI, we still considered these as photos. When you look at these photos on Instagram, you don't think, this is like a nice digital art or nice manipulated photo. You think, this is a sick photo. Not really thinking about whether the clouds were added or the light was changed. And arguably, it's the same thing with generative AI, because generative AI is trying to accomplish the same things that Photoshop editors did in the past. And so this really makes you question what impact this will have for photography. And it's so context dependent, because if your goal is to take a photograph and you want the experience and the knowledge that you took a photograph at the perfect moment, capturing everything, then of course generative AI is not going to give you that sense of fulfillment. But if your goal is to create a piece of art that you want to share to others and make others feel the same, then if the final image makes someone feel a certain way, then does the method really matter in the end? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm also kind of concerned and really curious of what's going to happen with the implications of generative AI. Generative AI is undoubtedly an amazing tool, and it ushers in a new era of creativity. What I'm worried about is that although generative AI has made it super easy to make amazing works of art, it's also made it super easy to use it for dangerous, malicious intentions as well. Deepfake technology is getting better, and generative AI technology will only make it even more powerful. And so that raises the question of, when do we start disclosing the use of generative AI? And this was a huge problem, and it's still a huge problem of like really altering and manipulating beauty standards, because all those models that you see on magazines, their faces are heavily photoshopped. And even with just manual Photoshop, that led to a whole disaster of like altering beauty perceptions and really impacting people's self-worth and people's self-confidence, comparing themselves to these beautiful photoshopped altered models. And now that generative AI is making image manipulation far easier, I'm concerned about the malicious potential that this brings. But on the flip side, I don't think that every instance of generative AI should be disclosed. For example, if you're just removing like a bird from the background, like, should you disclose that you use generative AI to remove the bird from the background? Because like, you could technically use an old Photoshop method to remove a bird or a line from photo. You could just paint it in if you wanted to, or you could use Photoshop's fill. Now it's just a lot easier and faster to use generative AI. And so if you use it for that, surely you don't need to disclose your use of it. But then where do you draw the line? I have no idea. And also, I'm aware that a lot of these discussions will heavily depend on the regulatory bodies. I know that there are conversations actively happening, like for example in the European Union, that are trying to also understand, where do we draw the line with generative AI disclosure. Honestly, I have no idea, and I'm personally really curious, but also kind of worried to see where this line ends up being drawn. In the end, what I wanted to do with this video is to open up a conversation with you guys, the photographers, the creatives watching this video, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments of, where do you stand on this topic? What do you think about generative AI? Let me know, and I look forward to talking to you in the comments. Thanks a lot.